Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In the last video we were talking about this little device here. It is the coin sorter, and that allows you to drop a penny anywhere on this and it will always end up in that little hole over there. So that is pretty handy when you're trying to sort out coins, and that was the next layer in our coin sorting robot design. But when you first turn a machine on, there's no way of knowing what position this servo motor is in unless you have some way to account for that. So in order to do that, I thought I would introduce some limit switches. And I looked on Amazon and there was a couple of different designs. But as it turns out, this actually seems a little bit large for what I'm trying to do here. But you can see how this works, that something would run past here or bump into this, and it would activate this switch. These are marked in 3 different positions for NO, NC, and C. This means that this is the normally open position, the normally closed position, and this is the common position. So this would be shared between each of these 2 positions. But you really only need 2 wires to connect to any limit switch, depending on whether you want it to be normally open or normally closed. The only other limit switch that I found on Amazon that would fit the bill was this one right here. Again, it has 3 pins for normally open, normally closed, and the common pin. So I thought that what I would do is try to build a mount. Now, because I'm absolutely perfect and I do everything right the 5th time, you can see how many times it took me to print these particular parts in order to get it right. But what I did was basically, I took this smaller limit switch and I broke the design into smaller pieces. You can see that this little rectangle here is actually just a smaller portion of this coin shelf that I have. So I didn't have to waste so much plastic when I was printing this out. But the basic gist behind that was to make sure that I could still get the alignment of this, so I get the center hole, and then I could adjust where the limit switch holder was over here so that it was actually activated by these cogs as they're going around. So this was my first attempt, and you can see that the limit switch fits in there, but it didn't quite leave enough room for the switch to activate in there. It doesn't actually set down in there all the way, and you can see that there's interference there. One of the things that I did do was I cut that lever off just a little bit on one of these, just so that I could fit that down inside there a little bit better and see if it would actually work if I had a better design. So you can see that this actually works in that position, but I really needed to adjust the size of this holder so that it was a better fit. And then in this version, I left room for the wires to come up through the bottom of this. So we're making some revisions, and I also put notches at the top and bottom of this so that we can't slide this forward or back. We wanted to control very precisely where this limit switch is located so that we know that this switch will only be activated 1 time. And the final version that I ended up with, or close to the final version, was much bigger. I had a lot more room for this lever up here. You can see now that we can actually activate that switch and it will move appropriately. So that's great. Now, the final version of that in the finished coin grabber design looks something like this. We have the limit switch in here that's activated by those cogs as the coin grabber spins around. And we also have a hole here for the wires to pass down through the machine, and we can connect that to the other electronics that are eventually going to go in here. Now, if you listen to this, you can see that as these compliant mechanisms move past the limit switch, it sounds like the limit switch is actually activated 2 or 3 times. And that kind of scared me. If you listen closely, you can hear 3 clicks every time one of those compliant mechanisms go by. But I did some testing with a continuity tester, and it turns out that this little lever here isn't actually being activated 3 times. It was just actually clicking on some of these catches as it came around. But it all seems to be working, and it's really only activating the switch once when this compliant mechanism cog is actually at its highest point. So that's the only time that the limit switch is actually being activated. That should give us the position of the servo motor when those are at peak, and that will allow me to adjust so that this is in turn right directly over the camera when it's rotating through the positions. So that's kind of nice. If we put that back on here, you can see that the limit switch is in there. It's not it's not interfering with anything, and you can hear it actually being activated. But for now, I think that's my 2 cents. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay awesome.